Morning people, welcome back to F Politics. I just proved exactly why the Labour Party banned me from this year's party conference, because they knew that I would do this at the very first chance I got. I arrived here in the pouring rain without a pass to actually enter the building, and yet still, within 30 minutes, I got the Health Secretary of the Labour Party to admit that he supports the majority of voters having no effect on UK policy. Ladies and gents, Wes Streeting. I just want to see, given that the Labour Party's NEC policy is that first past the post is bad and it leads to disenfranchisement, are you in favour of making it so that all votes in the country count equally?
I don't think that was in our manifesto. We've got to crack on first with delivering our manifesto.
Okay.
Before we start worrying about things that weren't in our manifesto.
Okay, but so given that right now, in every single election, especially right now, as you only had 34% of the vote and have 62% of the seats in Parliament, the majority of votes have gone to parties that essentially have no say on policy. Yeah. So the majority of votes have no effect on our policies. So can we be a democracy if the majority of votes have no effect on policy making? So is that something you think we should change?
I think the main thing we've got to do is deliver what we said we would. Start the process of rebuilding our economy, rebuilding our public services, rebuilding trust in politics itself.
But the consequence of that is that you're supporting a system that means the majority of votes don't count.
In the grand scheme of things, I'm worried about. I'm more worried about the NHS.
So democracy doesn't matter. So democracy doesn't matter.
Democracy does matter.
Okay, so you want the majority of votes to count then?
No, I'm saying
no.
We're committed.
No.
I'll stop being silly. We're focusing on delivering our manifesto.
But I'm literally saying, how about you make it so the majority of votes count? And you are telling me no.
It's a priority. It's not a priority.
So the majority of votes counting is not a priority for the Labour Party.
Electoral reform of that kind was not in our manifesto.
Okay, so because it's not in the manifesto of a party that only got 34% of the vote, the majority of British votes shouldn't count.
Well, we did have a referendum on electoral reform
where PR wasn't on the table, so we never had a so we never had a chance to vote for PR. So we never had a chance to vote for PR because that wasn't on the table.
It's not a priority.
It's not a priority. Democracy isn't a priority.
I'm so sorry.
I'm not slowing you down. I also exposed two other cabinet ministers on this issue. For example, Liz Kendall, the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. I was just wondering, given that the NEC's official policy is that first past the post disenfranchises voters, it's bad for democracy. Do you believe that given that in every election a party with only a minority of the vote gets a majority of the seats, especially now, meaning that the majority of votes have no effect on policy, is that something that you would like to change?
I mean, I'll do you a proper interview if you want to ask me to, but I'm really proud that we've got a big Labour majority and a big Labour government, and that we're now going to be putting into practice the things that we campaigned on, and all the changes we've already made.
Okay, but that still leaves the majority of people being democratically powerless in the UK. Is that something you'd like the Labour government to change?
I've got no plans to change. We've got no plans to change the voting system.
Let me translate that. Her reaction to hearing that the majority of UK votes have no effect on policy is to say, I'm really glad that worked out for our party. And that's selfish on a level that we need to talk about, because it's not just selfish on a national level, like screw what the majority of British voters want, at least we're getting what we want. It's not even just selfish on the party political level, like screw the other parties, all that matters is Labour. It's selfish on an individual career level for Labour MPs, because this first past the post voting system tends to deliver conservative governments. It's just that every couple of decades, like with Blair, like with Starmer, you get a Labour one every once in a while. And that's despite the fact that the majority almost always votes for parties that are to the left of the Tories. And yet the Tories have been in power for most of the last 80 years. So by not changing the voting system, Labour is allowing the people of the UK to be consistently governed by governments that are more right-wing than our actual people, because it will sometimes benefit Labour. And so because the current Labour MPs happen to be there now, to hell with all the other Labour MPs who happen to get elected in the majority of years where Labour didn't get lucky. So any Labour MP that doesn't support giving us a fair voting system isn't just screwing over the country by inflicting conservative governments on us for the majority of the time, they're also screwing over their own party for personal gain. I also caught up with Lucy Powell, the Leader of Parliament, but as soon as she figured out what topic I wanted to discuss, this happened.
I'm not doing that now. No, I'm not doing that now.
Do you believe the majority of British votes should count? The majority of votes don't count because a party with a minority of the votes always gets a majority of seats in Parliament. So do you believe, given that the NEC position is that first past the post disenfranchises voters, do you believe the majority of votes should count? Do you believe the majority of British votes should count? Excuse me? Do you believe the majority of votes should count? By staying silent, I assume you support first past the post then?
Sorry, you're just...
So Labour is aware that they are supporting and benefiting from a system that means the majority of votes in this country have no effect on policy. They also know that at conference, this place where the members vote on policy, conference has voted overwhelmingly to change it so that all votes count equally, which means the only barrier between the people of this country and an actual functioning fair democracy is the leadership of the Labour Party. I'm Femi. Make sure you follow F Politics so politics doesn't F you. Have a great week.